For more on the evacuation situation in Sudan, let's now speak to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena, who joins us live now. Sophie, thank you so much for your time. What is the latest on the South African embassy and well as the staff and people who are there when it comes to evacuation efforts?
Well, the spokesperson of the Department of International Relations, Mokoena, pointed out that the evacuation process has started. We know that the South Africans, 77 people, plus the staff of the embassy, but also including some nationals within the SADC region from other countries, are on board a bus and they are making their way to a border. It's not clear which border, because of security measures. But I suspect that South Africa has got very few options in terms of where they can go. One, it's Djibouti, which is not a familiar territory and friendship with that country. We saw that the French and also the Americans and the British used that country to get their citizens out. You have also Ethiopia, which is even more complex. And then, of course, Egypt, our friends, they can go to the border between Sudan and Egypt. And also, you know that Egypt is assisting the Sudanese government. Now, if you want to confine yourself within the continental body that is AU, clearly the relationship and the best option for South Africa will be a border between Sudan and Egypt. I spoke to one South African who is in the bus immediately when they left Khartoum. He told me that they are in the bus, but the technicality is that it is going to be a long way to the border. But secondly, the connection is a problem. They've interfered with the internet, and they were just hoping and praying that on the road to that border where they are going, there won't be any skirmishes. But I know that this is the operation of the South African Defence Force, including other departments. And I'm told that the current Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, who has since been announced as an envoy for Sudan, is also involved behind the scenes, because I think this is a way to introduce him to the politics of Sudan and South Sudan, because these are neighboring countries. And we are waiting to hear. They will contact me as soon as they are in a safe place where they can perhaps give us more information.
Especially when you think about just what people have been saying on the ground, just about how difficult it's been to get out. Some people talking about 2-3 days, at a time to be able to get to the other side. Also, we're seeing countries talking about closing their embassies, and this will lead to more challenges. Is the UN looking into this at all?
Well, tomorrow, the Security Council in New York, the Secretary General will convene a meeting where they are going to discuss the situation in Sudan. Earlier on today, he issued a statement again calling for ceasefire. I saw that the other faction has pointed out that they are going to extend the truce, but there's no truce on the ground. The peace is not holding. The cessation of hostility is not holding. They are continuing to fight each other, and therefore the situation is very dangerous. Secondly, if you pull out the diplomats in any country, you are saying that country must be on its own, and there won't be people who are watching and intervening. But the good news is that Kenya has decided that it will not evacuate its diplomats. In other words, the foreign affairs minister has announced that they will keep some officials in Khartoum because they want to mediate. You know that Kenya is part of the IGAD, and Sudan was the chair of IGAD, but because of the conflict, they can't chair, they can't be players and referees at the same time. And therefore you have Sudan. You know Sudan is not that strong, and they are going to elections. They have their own internal challenges. And therefore President William Ruto saying that they will continue to assist, and the Foreign Affairs Minister saying they will keep their diplomats there. Because when you take out ambassadors, high commissioners, now the people who are left in that country will only be Sudanese, and they are going to kill each other, and no one is going to be able to intervene. And the sad thing is that now with the challenges of internet, it is going to be very difficult to communicate. We're supposed to have spoken to our correspondent in Khartoum. We can't even connect to her. We can just pray that perhaps something will be done by international community, and the two groups will hear the call from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
I know we're out of time, but let's talk very briefly in about 30 seconds about the Finland state visit. What can we expect tomorrow?
I expect the two leaders to talk about trade and investment, but I think the war in Ukraine is something that's going to drag the discussions, and I can't see two countries agreeing in terms of what needs to be done. South Africa has taken a decision not to isolate Russia. Other countries want to isolate Russia, and Finland has just joined NATO, which is been seen as a sign that Finland has taken a decision to go with the European Union. They have reasons. They say their security is threatened, and the population and the nation feels strong that they should join the NATO for their own protection. So I think that matter is going to be a sticking point.
It's going to be an interesting one to see, and of course SABC will be front and center bringing you the very latest, and I'm sure Sophie will be there to make sure that we are kept up to date. Thank you so much. That is SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena.